one, 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 one. Welcome to the one-on-one. When it comes to ratings, man, we number one. I get the truth, then I give them the scoop. If anybody got a question, I give them the proof. Welcome to the one-on-one. When it comes to ratings, man, we number one. I get the truth, then I give them the scoop. If anybody got a question, I give them the proof. Welcome to one-on-one at Legacy Maker Sports Network.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are here for episode 97 of One-on-One here on the Legacy Maker Sports Network. I am excited. I am pumped up for today's guest. You know, in the sports industry, we get a chance to meet a lot of great people. Sometimes maybe not so great people, but we'll let that one slide. But you get a chance to run into some amazing folks along in the journey. And this past year, finally, after years of seeing this gentleman across my social media feed doing his thing, everything Kansas City. I mean, the man knows a little bit of everything. I don't want to toot his horn too much because he already knows he's talented. But it was an honor to meet this young man at the Super Bowl this year. My first time, his multiples. He's been there way more times than I can count on my hand here. Mr. Darren Smith. He is the host of The Ship on Fox Sports and on 8010 AM in Kansas City. What is up, Darren? How's everything going, brother?
Well, first of all, man, I saw your intro, so I'm hoping to live up to the hype with everybody you had on there. So hopefully, just I don't fall into that category of I met some good people, then I met these people over here. I don't want to fall into that category. So,
you're in a good spot.
Yeah. But look, all is well, man. I really appreciate you inviting me on the show. I've been seeing, of course, we follow each other on social media, and I'm always like, okay. I'm like, we follow each other on Facebook, and I know you see what, when's he gonna have me on this show? And I ain't want to be bro, you gonna have me on? So look, it was good to finally meet you. I know, I follow your work, obviously, that you do, in the DMV area with with Ashley and everybody, and of course Kelsey, and then your photo work that you do and stuff. So it was a pleasure, and look, I want to apologize just in case, because when you first walked up on me, I'm just all over the place because it's radio row and stuff like that. So I appreciate you coming up and introducing yourself and just reintroducing yourself. So we hadn't personally met face to face, so it was a pleasure meeting you out there, and I hope you enjoyed your time out in Phoenix.
Oh man, it was amazing. I'm hoping, and fingers crossed, everything goes well for Vegas this year. So I'm ready for round two. It was after the first experience. I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be hard not to not go.
I tell you something before we get into this. I tell you, my first time was the year that the Patriots came back and won against the Atlanta Falcons, and I had only been approved for Radio Row, so it was my first time doing Radio Row and didn't know how things were supposed to go, whatever. So I got down there, man, and I got down. I think that Saturday prior to the Radio Row start, and then the Sunday. I drove from Kansas City down to Houston, and blew out a tire. Fortunately, my guy Lorenzo Kane gave me a donation before I went down, so it kind of helped with some of the traveling stuff. So because I blew out that tire, my Escalade driving from here all the way down to Houston, and so it came in handy. But when I got down there, I set everything up in the on Radio Row, and it's funny because I don't. For me, sometimes I talk. People talk about get credit for what you do. I was one of the first people who actually started live streaming about 20 years ago before it became a thing. Broadcasting sports, so I was broadcasting football and basketball over the web for Lincoln University, my HBCU alma mater. This back in 2001, 2002. So this was well before what you see now on the internet. It was so big that CBS Sports had wanted me to come do the track and field, but my boss at the time got a little jealous and was like, "Nah, we ain't
having that."
The president wanted me to do it, and the president could have pulled a rank, but I was like, "Hey, don't worry about it."
I digress.
And so what was crazy was So I get down there in Houston, and I brought my 50-inch, no, my 55-inch television, and all my computer gizmos and stuff and everything to stream and everything. So you would see people like recording stuff with their cameras, but I was the only one that was actually live streaming. This was so this was I was doing stuff via Facebook, and I was using a software called Wirecast, and so I got my big screen here on the thing while I'm being interviewed, while I'm interviewing people, and they're seeing questions, everything pop up. So they're enjoying answering my question, but looking at the people ask questions, I'm pulling questions off while they can see it. And so when they're looking at it, everybody's like, "What is going on?" Then what happens? Everybody else start doing it the following year. It's like I
Hey,
can't have nothing.
I mean,
But
trendsetter. I mean,
yeah,
they was like, man, what is this guy doing over here? Let me check
yeah,
that out.
but I tell you though, the thing that I know, so because I did not know what I needed to do while I was down there, man, I was down there like 6 a.m. every morning. I was like one of
Oh,
the first people there, unless you had a morning show or whatever. I was like the first person there, like the last person leaving. I'm like asking everybody for interviews left and right. Some people would tell me no. I remember Solomon Wilcox was telling me no. I saw him Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. He saw me first thing that Thursday morning.
uh-huh.
He said, "Man," he said, "I don't know who you are." He said, "But you've been as a hustler." He said, "I will come do an interview with you as long as I can promote myself." I said, "I don't care, So
Promote away,
promote.
man.
And
Just
then
give me
next,
just give me your
Derek Brooks
time.
and then everybody else started because my big interview that whole week was leading up to Jamel Hill
Hmm.
with ESPN for her and Michael Smith's new debut show that they were debuting right after the Super Bowl.
Hmm.
And so of course me being affiliated with Fox Sports Radio and she ESPN, that Friday, she had texted me early that morning. She said, "Hey, I got like 8 hits I got to do before I come to you, but I got you." I said, "Okay, cool." She did all her things, and then she was coming over my way. Her people was like, "Well, you can't do this because it's Fox Sports." She was like, "No, that's my friend." I said, "I'm gonna do it. It's gonna do it." Well, you only got 5 minutes with him. She gave me 25, so I mean, it pissed her people off. But it was
I
just,
mean, they
but
be all right though. I
you
mean,
know,
that's friendship.
but I always tell people, go do this type of stuff because you never know who you're gonna meet. You don't know what kind of relationships that you're gonna build along the way. And so I've been fortunate since that time, and even before then, just over the years, being able to build relationships with a lot of people to where, they send me a text, call, "Hey, can you do the show?" No problem.
Yeah, man. Like I said, it's definitely an honor here. I've been waiting for years, and I got a chance. I was like, "As my guy, I gotta go and get things going." Before we get going, let's go ahead, ladies and gentlemen, and start off with our first segment, the check-in. So here on the check-in, of course, everybody knows that on the check-in, we check in on you, Darren. We just want to know how you, your family, your friends, how's everything going in the world of Darren Smith right now?
Everything's going good right now. Just really getting my mind set, and got to start exercising a little bit more because we've got the NFL season about to kick off this month
Yes,
now. Now we're in July, so training camp
we're
starts in about
close.
about 3 weeks. So once training camp starts, my life really doesn't belong to me any longer. It belongs to the NFL and the football gods, so to speak.
Yes.
My family, my mom and everybody, they're doing well. They're getting ready for a family cruise at the end of this month. Now, they're kind of disappointed. I'm a little disappointed as well that I'm not going on the cruise. Like everybody outside of my sister and her husband and child, they're not going. But because most of us are based here, they're upset. They're not upset, but they're disappointed that I'm not going.
Right.
After a while, it's like I'm disappointed as well. But the thing is, the reason why I tell myself my money's kind of funny because I personally invest in my road stuff when it comes to traveling, covering the Chiefs, and with them playing in Frankfurt, Germany later on this year in November. I had to I had to pay for my ticket to go over there, and that the one thing I tell people. If you have to fly overseas, if you can afford it, if you can do it, fly first class. I said it because when I flew to London to cover the Chiefs back in
Mhm.
2015, I was just trying to get there. So I'm Priceline and hotel and
Whatever it
airline
takes.
ticket
Whatever it takes.
and going over there, I'm flying Delta. You plan on, they booked the flights kind of late so you can sleep going overseas. I couldn't sleep because there was two women behind me talking the entire time, and I had my Beats by Dre on, and I
Just
could
didn't
still
work.
hear it, and it didn't work. So I'm just frustrated, So I finally got to sleep. But by the time I could sleep, we're landing. Coming back after the game the next day, I'm on like literally 2 hours sleep because we're 6 hours ahead.
Oh
The Chiefs,
man.
the Chiefs, won the game, of course, but it's the first game of the day, London time, and you still got 9 hours of football back here in the States that you're
Man.
watching. And on top of that, the Royals were playing in the World Series, and this was, I think, Game 5 or Game 6 that they ended up winning. So I'm watching the World Series on my laptop. And they win the World Series about 5 o'clock in the morning London time, and I got to be at the airport, and my flight takes off at 8 o'clock in the morning. Get on the plane and everything, and then we're on the tarmac for 2 hours because of fall, and so we misconnect the flight.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so I'm there, and the seats are just tight. So I want people to think, I'm a big guy, but nah. And I realized at that time, if I ever fly overseas again, I've got to fly first class. So
Got to.
I told my mom, I said, hey, my money on my ticket for the cruise ended up going to London. I had to pay like $7,000 for a round trip ticket, first class, mind
Ooh.
you. But it's definitely gonna be worth it because I
Boy.
can lay down, I can sleep.
Hey.
Oh,
As
I'm
hey,
gonna be good.
that space is valuable. And if you're going to Germany, how far is Germany from here? Because that's
It's actually further than London. So London was, I believe, 6 hours ahead of Kansas City. So this was, I think, 7 hours ahead.
man,
So it's going to be like an 8.5 hour flight. I'm flying from
man.
here to Detroit, from Detroit all the
There.
way to Frankfurt. When I come back, I'm go from Frankfurt, JFK, Detroit, and Kansas City. So.
Oh man, look, I'm just gonna throw a prayer for you because I know how the struggle is on the plane, and I complain about that. But if I had to do 9 hours, nah. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, but yeah. Hey, look, you got to do what you got to do.
Got to.
Well, let's get into how everything got started here for Mr. Darren Smith. So, Darren, when you were, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, where did that first passion of sports come from? When it hit you and you was like, man, I love sports. Where did that come from for you? What was that moment?
It's funny because I was out prior to coming back here to set up to come do this, and I was thinking, like, I know he's going to ask me how I got started. I said, and what's interesting is that my first love of sports came from growing up watching wrestling. Man, that was the first thing that I remember watching television was the WWF. Yeah, WWF. And so literally with myself, my older brother, my younger brother, on Saturday mornings growing up, and this is in the 80s now, mind you, it ain't like you had a lot of channels or whatever, but
right,
we would wake up to Glow, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, the AWA, the World Class Championship Wrestling, the NWA. No, well, actually, yeah, it was the NWA, and then of course the WWF. So we had like 5 hours. So I don't know how we did it, but we negotiated with our mom, like, let us watch wrestling, and then when wrestling goes off, we do whatever we need to do, yard work, chores, whatever. And that's so we had that arrangement. Then of course at 5 o'clock, 5:05, you had NWA that came on TBS. So it would either be an hour or 2 hours, depending on if there was a baseball game on, and then if there was Saturday night's main event, she would let us stay up to watch that.
Oh man,
so
wrestling all day, baby, wrestling all day.
So we did that, and then of course basketball, Michael Jordan, I think the NBA, that was my second love. And then I can't remember when I really got into football. People get upset because I tell them I didn't grow up a Chiefs fan, and they were like, "Well, wow, you in Kansas City?" I said, "Well, the thing is, well, here's the thing: the Chiefs weren't a great team in the '80s, and so most of their games were on at noon, and so, but growing up in a black household, my father was a minister. My mom sang in the choir. Plus, she worked for the pastor of the church, so we were in church.
Right.
So
you won't catch no games, man.
yeah. So while the Chiefs are playing, we're in church. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The spirit get to moving. We ain't getting out to 1:30,
at least
2
4,
o'clock,
at least 3 or 4 o'clock.
Yeah. So then by the time we get home, we're getting change of clothes. My mom's preparing for dinner stuff, and people coming over. Now, the game might be on, but it wasn't like we really paid attention, didn't grasp it. So it wasn't until like after 3 o'clock when the rest of the family stuff come over and Thanksgiving stuff like that, we would always see the Cowboys or the 49ers on television. So grew up watching those two teams, and that's where my fandom for those two teams growing up in late 80s, early 90s, where I followed Joe Montana and the Jets. So it was basically the NFC East and the NFC West with the 49ers, and that's how I grew up in the sports. When it came time, I was participating in sports when I was in middle school and high school. I started out on the Olympic weightlifting team in my middle school in the 8th grade, 7th and 8th grade. And then Ninth grade is when I started football. I never did play basketball. I just managed on the team because I couldn't do all the sports year round because weightlifting was a year round sport for me. So I couldn't do that, and the basketball so it was just football. Football that, and then I did run some track in high school. But my basketball coach just said, Smith, in case you never make it to professional ranks, he said, I want
Can't
you to
shoot. Wait a minute.
no. I never played basketball, so I didn't play basketball. It was
Oh,
just,
okay.
no, I was the manager of the team. My cousin played for the team. He was the All-American, so it just allowed us to hang out or whatever. So I managed the team. But like I said, I played football, weightlifted, and ran track. And the one thing I was known for was I was real smart, so I did a lot of reading. I was reading encyclopedias, thesauruses, almanacs, and newspapers. I would actually steal newspapers in the morning, saying to take out people's yards and stuff. And then I subscribed one time. My mom was pissed, but she beat the hell out of me for that. Who you to order newspapers? I was like, I saw a special, Mama, for $1 for 30 days. But she canceled that thing so quick afterwards. We did the 30 days. But yeah, I was still a newspaper. So, my thing was, the one thing nobody was going to take away from me was my knowledge. So I was like, as long as I'm still in reading and stuff, nobody's going to stop me. And so he had got me in touch with the sports director at our local black station. The guy used to play for him, and he had him come up to the school. And he said, I want him to intern under you. That was that. Then the following week, he brings me a credential to the Kansas City Chiefs Monday night game. And I started covering the Chiefs my sophomore year in high school. Yeah.
Sophomore year in high school. Yeah. Been hooked ever since.
Yeah, so this is actually going on year number 30.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, that's why I got a hat on because I, kind of grayed out.
Love,
the
dude.
Chiefs
my
Chiefs
hairline.
do that to you sometimes.
Well, I mean, like the last couple of years, maybe it's been like all the years of the 30 years of whoo. Now you can be like, all right, well, I'm in a pretty good spot right now. I mean, you're in a place right now with the talent on that team that is gonna,
And let me say this, I haven't covered the Chiefs 30 consecutive years because I was in college and stuff like that. But when I first started covering the Chiefs was 30 years ago. So,
man.
But so I've covered them, I think, at least 20 years or so.
So you got into sports when you were in college, right? You said you went to Lincoln.
No, high school.
In high school. Yeah. So you went to Lincoln University, correct?
Lincoln University in Jeff City, Missouri.
All right. And so is that where you finally said, all right, this is where I'm gonna take the leap into sports journalism? And I knew you was reading the paper, so you were gaining that knowledge. And I know you were doing it already to an extent, but is that where it kind of honed in all together?
Well, yes. Growing up, as I mentioned before, my mother was my pastor's aide, but he was also in the political field. So that made us into the political field. So he was a county legislator and a Democratic rep and stuff like that. So since my mom was his aide, we spent a lot of Friday nights licking envelopes and folding letters and stuff to get stuff out. It ain't like it is now. So when you just do a mass email. No. She would type or whatever. We'd have to. That's just what we do. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, again, she let us watch our wrestling. We help her do stuff that, we were going to do it anyway. We have a choice if we want to live and eat and stuff like that. Right. You know what I'm saying? But the cool thing was, we would run around the courthouse and be in the legislative room and be all on the microphones. Oh God, if they had cameras and stuff for what we did back then, but she probably got fired. But so when I got into college, I already knew I was going to double major. For me, it was never any question. I was going to double major in political science and journalism because that's what I grew up in. And so I knew I was going to do the sports aspect for it. So I got a chance to do the newspaper, radio, and television stuff when I was in college. So that was always the direction I was going.
That's a good deal.
And initially I got accepted into Howard. I was going to go to Howard, but when you're black and you're in government and you kind of speak out on some things, I'm a pastor. Again, he was someone that spoke out from the pulpit and from the bully pulpit in politics. You kind of catch the eye of the federal government. So I was planning on going to Howard University, but federal government came in and was prosecuting my pastor for some stuff.
Oh boy!
He ended up doing 3 years for tax evasion. It really what they were trying to get him for was on corruption and bribery and stuff, trying to get 55 years or whatever. And they
55.
yeah, they did. And he ended up doing 3 years, and that was just because of stuff that he admitted to on the stand about not paying taxes on love, offering or whatever that we gave him 1 year for pastors. Appreciate, that type of stuff you do in black churches. You do have an appreciation for your pastor or whatever.
Right.
And so the judge, because he couldn't, but look, the judge has some political things that didn't go his way while my pastor was in charge, and so he kind of took it out on. Got sentenced to 3 years, got out in about 18 months or whatever, and then rose right back to power, ran his campaign to get him back into elected office. So, and what was interesting was I was working for a U.S. senator, and I'm in the restroom with the judge that sentenced him, and I was like, and with nobody around, wasn't no cameras, and I was like, man, if I was anybody else, I think to myself, I said, because I want to go to heaven. I said, man, I'm not going to do this man no harm. So,
about to get this hands.
And so, but going back to that, the reason why I didn't go also because the federal government, they were also coming after my mom as well, being his aide, you know what I'm saying? So I didn't want to be too far away in case for some reason, because he was helping pay for my college. So again, I didn't want to, so I didn't want to be too far away. If I had to come home for anything, I need to be there. So during my break, my freshman year, I came home to help him on his case and everything. So.
Man, that's crazy. That's crazy how that all went down. I mean, like, just I'm just glad you didn't give my man hands in the bathroom. He probably, it sounds like he deserved it big time, but I'm glad you didn't give him hands in the bathroom.
Hey man, no, it was gonna get more than hands, but again,
hey look, but look, we're different people at this point.
I tell people, don't let the suit stuff fool you. I'm about that life. I just I just like my freedom. I want a couple of prison tours. I'm like, I ain't built for a 6x9. So,
well, let's talk. That's funny you bring up the suits, because we got to talk about the suit game. Got to talk about the suit game. Look, and that's one of the things that I told. I think when I first described you to someone, I said, if you never see my man Darren, like, the suit game is always on point. And I don't think I've ever seen him wear the same suit twice. And if he has, he's disguised it extremely well. But it is just, look, nobody comes to play when it comes to the suit game like you, man. How did that come about, man? How did the suit game come along for Darren Smith? That's what I need to know.
It's funny, and this is a true story. So I think when I first started my show, I was more about building my brand. So you would see, the ship with Darren Smith, where there's a hat, Scully, polo, stuff like that. So I had one of my sponsors, church guy, he owns his own T-shirt thing, whatever. So he would just put stuff together for me to wear throughout the year. And I think it was, I think it was the year that Mahomes, they went to. I think it was the year they went to the AFC. No, it wasn't. Okay, so it was. It was the following year, the year that the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. So the third game of the year, second or third game of the year, the Chiefs played the Detroit Lions in Detroit. But leading up to that week, Bob Kendrick, who was the executive director of the Negro League Museum here in Kansas City, I was complimenting him about something about, I think, a suit he wore. And he was like, go to this guy who was running Michael's, who was a men's suit thing here. Tell him I said, take care of you. And so, called him up, told me to come down. He put me in a blue suit. I think it was a blue suit with a yellow thing. So that was my first time.
It was the first time. I think I remember that. That's crazy.
Covered the Chiefs. Yeah. So me and my co-host, we took a picture with Pam Oliver on the field, and so I took the. I saw how big I was. Like, shit, I gotta drop some weight. But yeah. So that was the first time I was in a suit. Everybody's like, oh, because they see me. They saw me over the years. Promoting, the brand and stuff. So everybody knew about the ship. People call me that left and right. So when I put that on, it kind of just threw people off. And so I'm in this little sports group on Facebook here locally in Kansas City called the Sports Den. And one of the guys that's a member of, his name is Todd White. he just happened to be on the sidelines while I'm doing my pregame show. When I got through, he introduced himself to me. He said, "Man, we're in the same thing." And he said, "Man," he said, "I like the stallion." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I'm on soup places, and so come by Tuesday, after you get back in town, and saying I'll get your measurements, and I want to start styling for the suit." So in my mind, I'm like, okay, what's the catch? Because I'm like,
Right.
okay, I
It's got
wear
to be
it, I
something. It's
get
got
it
to be
back.
something to it.
I'm like, he said, nah. So he said, no, I'm gonna put you in the suit, keep the suit. That's just, you just, photos, blah blah blah. Promote the brand. I was like, oh, you got to tell me twice. Now,
Man.
the first time I realized I was looking good in suits was, when I did my fellowship at the White House while I was in college. I
Right.
had to wear suits, so I didn't have money for suits at that time
Yeah,
in
suits get
college.
expensive.
And so the local councilman here took me to a guy named Harold Penner's. Say, hey, I need, you need some suits. Now, I didn't need the Harold Penner suits that you wear on Easter Sunday or whatever like that.
Right.
So I had to have the professional type suits. So he he just gave me like 5-6 suits or whatever. So you rotate that, while I'm up in DC. And man, I said, oh man, I could get used to this. Now I had to learn how to tie a tie. That was the hardest part, man. I didn't know how to tie a tie at the time when I was in college because I had to wear it too often. But yeah, so when he said that, I was like, okay, cool. So he just put me in suits. Like I literally would get a new suit every week. And so the only time during the season I don't wear the same suit. The only time I'll repeat a suit is during the week of the Super Bowl. Radio Row.
Right.
I'll bring a suit back that I wore throughout the season, and then I'll break out a new suit, my Super Bowl suit on game day Sunday. But every year, man, I could go.
The
And my
closet. The closet is
man,
insane.
like literally for the suits I have coming up this year, I have no space for them. I mean, I have all of them up here, and so there's no space for the new suits that I have this
All right,
year.
so whatever ones you're donating, I'm gonna send my address, and
Man,
I don't know. Like, I'm a big dude though, so I don't know.
Here's the problem. The problem is my weight fluctuates. Like I drop weight, but this I don't know. It's true, and it's funny, but it ain't. When I get free food a lot, and it's like I take advantage of it, and that's the problem. What I'm saying? Because
That's
growing
that
up,
media. That's that media, man.
Well, no, because growing up, I used to get down, man. My high school principal, I helped him move from Chicago to Kansas City. I'm still trying to figure out as a kid how the hell my mom let me do that. But I mean, no, wasn't no funny, but nothing like that. Just saying, But so I helped him move, and I remember he took me to a Chicago deep dish place. He was living in Chicago. And then on the way back, I think we had stopped off at a Western Sizzler or Golden Corral or someplace, or Ryan's or something. And he went on to tell the story. I swear, I hate him for this because the shit was so true. He would tell the story. He said, man, we got to Ponderosa, whatever it was. And he sat down, boom, with 2 plates. He scarfed it up. He go back, boom, 2 more plates. And he said, okay. He said, by the time we left, I know that. He said, that boy had like 10 plates. He said, I'd rather clothe them than feed them. I'm like, we had a buffet. Because me and my grandma used to argue about time. We had a buffet, all you can eat. Like, what the hell y'all upset about? I'm eating all I can.
Trying to shut this thing down.
I could never understand why people get upset at me. Like, you eat too much. We had a buffet. What am I supposed to do?
That's not like I'm spending a lot of money. If I spend $15, y'all gotta let me live. Let me go out here and eat this food.
And the worst part is, of course, not the worst part because I love barbecue. Obviously, one of my sponsors is Gates Barbecue here in Kansas City. So the good thing is that the Chiefs have like all late afternoon. They got one noon game, which is I think New Year's Eve against the Bengals, or it could be Christmas. I can't remember. But but all their games are either prime time or late afternoon. So that means I get to stop by Gates to bring my food over to the stadium,
right,
and have my pregame meal, at the stadium. Now I'm the only person that they let do that. So but I got a little carte blanche. I have to I can't really promote. I can't take pictures of it and post it anymore because they Airmark got upset about it here. But I didn't care. But the fact, but sometimes they will have good food there at the stadium as well. So it's like got all this free food, just got all this food around. It's like
It's tough,
yeah,
man. It's
it's
tough
tough,
out
man.
there.
And I'm trying to be disciplined, but man, when they serve filet mignon steaks or whatever, I'm like, man, I'm sorry,
I mean, you got look. That's probably my biggest
I
weakness.
got to live.
I've been doing Commanders games / the other Washington organization. I've been doing Commanders games since 17. And every time I'm like, man, it always kind of like baffles me. Like you come in there, the food is loaded. I'm like, man, it's hard to say no to this free food.
Yeah, see,
And that's
That's
the
it.
tough part.
And the thing is, I used to do what you did. I used to shoot on the field too. So I was one of the few people who shot on the field and then went to the press conference after the game and was asking questions. I couldn't go in the locker room because but it was like, so if I wanted to question Andy Reid or somebody, one of the coaches, or whatever, I could shoot on the field. And then because I was writing for newspapers, I was doing everything. I was writing for a newspaper, taking pictures, to go along with articles, all that stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
I was doing it all.
Ain't no wrong with that. Well, let's get into, before we move to our next segment. Last one on this one is, what is your outlook for this year's? I mean, obviously, and this team is more likely Super Bowl or bust. I mean, that's the culture that is being built there in Kansas City. But what is your outlook on this team? Obviously, some changes at receiver. Eric Bieniemy is now gone. All that good stuff. But what is your outlook on the team this year?
I expect to actually repeat for the first time since the 03-04 Patriots. I expected them to repeat in 2020 when they ran it back. That was the theme at the time was to run it back, and they got all the way back to the Super Bowl. But of course, there were some things that happened along the way in the playoffs. They suffered some injuries with the offensive line. So the line was ravaged, and then of course the situation with Andy Reid's son prior to the team. And I've always been a big proponent of that. Had they just came down the week and stayed the week instead of trying to come down that weekend. I know it's doing COVID and everything, but still, I mean, you could have made arrangements. I think if that happens, I think things are done differently because you don't have that black cloud of what happened with Andy Reid's son, that Thursday night, having a car crash and a little girl getting severely injured and stuff like that. So all this is weighing on the team prior to them leaving to come to Tampa. I've always felt that had they come down on that Sunday and stayed there for the whole week, you don't have those type of distractions, and the game.
Right, you're already there. Yeah, you're focused on the game at hand. Yeah,
so you don't have to worry about that situation happening. And his son's not in prison or whatever. For the years that he's in there now, and then not saying the Chiefs would not have lost, but I think the game wouldn't have been a 33-9 ball game. So.
Well,
So I said it to say that, yes, I expect them to run it back this year. Ever since the Chiefs made it to the AFC Championship game with Mahomes, his first full season starter, it's always been Super Bowl or bust, which is why, as everyone has seen, the last 5 years, they've always been in the AFC Championship game at worst. So for me, the floor is the AFC Championship game. The ceiling is, of course, the Super Bowl and winning it. So
yeah, I mean that's how things are with the Chiefs. Since Mahomes has been there, so that's what you almost have to expect. I mean, me personally, I couldn't see them, like you said. Would have to be AFC Championship being at the minimum.
I'll be honest. I tell people all the time. I used to, when I was writing, I could never get credentials for the newspaper. I mean, for the Super Bowl. Now that Mahomes is here. I get, I've been the last 5 years. So it's like, I tell people, I could probably look, I would have no problem moving to another city. The problem is that I wouldn't be guaranteed, going to Super Bowl. I said, the thing is, I like going to Super Bowl. I like traveling. I enjoy spending 9-10 days in another city and, being on Radio Rock. To me, that's my Super Bowl. So I enjoy meeting good people and talking to people and and to me, the Super Bowl game itself caps off my season. For me, feel like all the hard work I've put in throughout the year. And as long as Patrick is here and he's gone, I'm set. So me, it's like covering. It's like people who like Ahmad Rashad, people who got to cover Michael Jordan or whatever during his career. That's how I feel like covering Patrick Mahomes right now. To where now I used to be one of those people. After 2-3 years. I'm like, hold on, pump with the greats of all time and pump with all this GOAT style, And I said, let him do a couple more things. Now that he's finally,
Yeah, he's
I
got
said,
number
going to
two.
going to two Super Bowls and splitting, that's just a Russell Wilson type thing. I
Right.
said, but now that he's got another MVP, he's got another Super Bowl. Now we can, now it's fair to elevate him into a different status.
If he gets another one, which I would be very, very surprised. Not gonna wood, ain't trying to jinx him. If he gets another one, it's gonna be hard, especially with
Well, no, I mean
how efficient he is.
He still has a ways to go. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't even he would if he gets a third one, which I expect him to. Now, if he gets another MVP, then that's another discussion.
Right.
If he can repeat with that, then you got him in that. I think Montana has 2 MVPs and 4 Super Bowls or whatever, and maybe 3 Super Bowl MVPs. So now you start getting into that real echelon between Montana and even to an extent, Peyton Manning still he would have more titles, but Manning still has more MVPs, and then of course Tom Brady and stuff like that. So, but those are separate. Those are conversations that he can have separately than anyone. Now, I will say this, and you can say it now, and this is not to be meant as any slight to Warren Moon or anyone like that, but I think he's the greatest black quarterback that has played thus far. So far. Stats. When you accrue for stats and championships and awards and stuff like that, Warren Moon obviously, being a Hall of Fame and what he's done and the longevity and stuff. I'm not going to disrespect that. Of course, he played for the Chiefs at one time as well, and
right.
But Mahomes has put his work in.
He's right there. I mean, for me, I agree with you 100% on that. I mean, it's hard. It's going to be hard not to put him in that spot. Definitely, yes, he's probably the greatest black quarterback of all time. And it's right there. It's right there. Yeah. All right. So now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for my favorite segment. It is time for Quick Ones. So, are you ready, Darren, for the Darren Smith edition of Quick Ones here on 101?
I am, but I will say, man, when you get me all excited, you just put that little thing. I'm thinking something going. I'm thinking about going 30-second clip or something. It just go right back to me. I was like, really? But yeah,
you got a little time. All right, so there you go. Maybe in the future we'll work on that. All right, so let's go ahead. So the way it works here on Quick Ones, I'm gonna give you a topic. You go ahead and give me your feelings on it real quick, and then we'll go from there. Let's start off with I call them the standards. We got 3 of them. The first one, what is your favorite sports moment? And it could be professional, as a journalist, and personal, whatever way. As a fan, you can do it either way.
Sports moment, man. I probably should have had you send me these questions beforehand, so I can think about it. Because when you say quick ones, you want to right off the bat.
I like to mess with people, so I want people to think a little bit. So yeah, I can't give you that one on top.
I guess you could say the Super Bowl win for the Chiefs. The first one in 50 years. Being that I was there,
right?
Seeing it live. So I would say that it probably, I guess, the fact that I'm not a fan, I'm a fan of the players, and we got the same barber, stuff like that. So I want them to succeed, and to an extent, I want the Chiefs as an organization to succeed because, again, I like going to the Super Bowl and stuff like that. And when I say I'm not a fan of the organization, is growing up as a kid, I saw some stuff and how they treated me and how they treat others, and it was like it left a sour taste in my mouth. And sometimes I have run-ins, with the Chiefs still. From time to time, especially after a couple of years ago during the whole COVID and Black Lives Matter stuff. So, that kind of left a sour taste in my mouth with them sometimes. But, the relationship's getting a little bit better. So I guess I would say that. Number 2. That I've been a part of, that I've been involved.
Well, no, you didn't have to. It was just your favorite one. You didn't have to name all of them. You can name more though. I'm not going to tell you.
I thought you said top 3. So
no, just your favorite one. Just your favorite one.
I'll go with that just because I can't really think of anything else. Just because I wasn't prepared for that kind of question. Which is
well, don't worry. You got a couple more of those coming. Well, let's make it. It said, "What's your worst sports moment?"
Oh shit! The Chiefs losing 33-9, man. They cost me a lot of damn money in Tampa Bay, man.
Hey, that's hilarious.
They had sport. So yeah, I feel so bad. So the NFL gave us, because it was COVID at that time. COVID going on. They didn't have the NFL media part that they had, so they gave us like gift cards, Visa gift cards for like $45, and to tour, do whatever. And so somehow I had like 12 or 15 of them. So you multiply that times $45. I already knew what most of that was. Hey, all right, look, I used a couple of them for food that week, but the
Right.
rest of it was all going on betting. So so I'm online. So I'm putting cashed all my stuff up
Right.
like $500. So I'm like, and they had a match deposit, so I got like $1,000. Now I'm sitting thinking, and I ran across a prop bet that Mahomes wouldn't throw a touchdown pass. I forgot what it was, but it was like maybe plus 2,500. I said, well, shit, ain't no way he's not gonna throw a touchdown. Hell, I didn't know the Chiefs were only gonna score 9 points, not score two. Do you know how much I could have made just on that
Man,
alone?
you would have been killing it.
But
You would have been
I mean,
killing
but
it.
man, I had, I was sitting thinking, okay, it's gonna be a high scoring game because Brady should always go down to the wire. Man, I had no idea that the Chiefs were going. And the problem, like, if you look at it, like I said, I'm there, so the Chiefs had chances to cut like Tyreek Hill and Darrell Owens dropped touchdown passes. Mahomes hit him in the hands. I think he had somebody. I think he was kind of like unnecessary roughness where he almost had the ball stuck in the dude's face mask just to get the ball in, and the dude dropped in. Travis Kelce dropped a third down pass that would have extended the play, and so nothing was going right for the Chiefs. And of course, with the offensive line, he's running for his life, but he's running, flying, throwing stuff sideways, and I'm just sitting thinking like, okay, this is the time where he's going, where stuff's about to, but it's like every time, like they left, I think 21 points on the, on the field by dropping 2 touchdown passes and extending plays. You do that, you're looking at 33-30. I mean, the game's going back and forth. So the game being played, being called differently. And then also, I believe that it being in Tampa Bay where you didn't have fans, but it was still a home game for them.
Right.
Like, even though it was commercials, whatever, they were doing on the boards and stuff, everything was all Tampa Bay based or whatever. So
Man.
yeah, local there. So it felt more like a home game for them than an actual championship game. So, if it had been opened up, obviously COVID, but it's saying you have a full stadium, Chiefs fans.
It's a different thing.
It's a different thing, different story. Maybe different outcome. So yeah, that was definitely the worst moment because shit, I lost so much money. Granted, it was money that they, that I got.
So technically, they lost so much money.
Yeah, well, they lost money. I could have been winning. So yeah.
Hey, look, man, that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
I'll never forget that shit.
Next one. Who's your favorite athlete growing up?
Favorite athlete? Oh, man, because I was big on wrestling, I'd have to say Sting, man.
Okay.
Sting was my favorite wrestler, man, and I got a chance to meet him in the 8th grade. Guy used to play football at K-State. Name was Lawrence Big Cat Hughes. Used to be the real. He used to wrestle. He looked like a bodyguard. Had the glasses on and just big, just mean looking dude. And I remember Paul Heyman was sitting. We were at the Municipal Auditorium. Paul Heyman was sitting somewhere, and I said, "Hey man, I got some brass knuckles if you want to use it." And he's telling me as a kid in 8th grade, "Get the fuck away from me." I said, "Man, I'll come up there and beat your ass." But then I realized,
Paul Heyman, hey, that's wild.
Yeah, he old school, man. Hey, I fucks with him, so hopefully I can cuss. But I saw Big Cat Hughes, and I was like, "Yo, Big Cat Hughes," and I was like, "Man, I would really love to meet Sting if you could ever make that happen." He was like, "I'll be back." I was like, "Damn, I'd have ran him off too." And he looked aside, "Hey, come here for a second." So I go back there, say, "Turn around." And here is Sting. I'm like, "Oh my God!"
It's Sting.
Hey man, I ran and hugged him. I'm like, oh, I'm in the 8th grade. I'm like, man, I had to put my manhood to the side, and I was acting like a big old fan girl, like Sting.
Hey, man,
I was like, oh my God.
You meet your heroes, man.
But I was like, I had hit that octave kind of high. I was like, oh shit, it's Sting. Hey man, that was as an 8th grader, someone, and trust me when I tell you, everybody knew I was a big wrestling fan. So the fact that I got a chance to meet him, man. I mean, you can tell me nothing, man. So
Man,
that was my
and
guy growing up.
Sting's still doing it, man. 60 years old, diving off tape, diving off top ropes and hitting. He went. I
Yeah,
think
I
the
ain't about that life.
last week he went through a table. I'm like, man, Sting's still out here doing it at 60. So, hey, man,
And
Sting's the
man,
man.
money, hey, money's good, and man, he probably still got bills to pay too. So
Hey, Sting the man. Sting the man. Next one. Your best barbecue you've ever had.
Gates Barbecue.
There it is.
Well, I'm gonna say somebody else, and they sponsor me.
Hey, I mean, if it's true, it's true. I mean,
no. Well, and here's the thing: the reason why I say that, and whether they sponsor me or not, I'd still say it. It's just they're one of the original. I mean, barbecue essentially started here in Kansas City with a guy named Henry Perry, Arthur Bryant's, and Gates Barbecue. They had their people who used to actually work for Henry Perry. And so they learned there, and then they put their own little stuff to it. So Arthur Bryant's and Gates Barbecue, two black barbecue establishments, are the OGs here in the city. And one thing I will tell people is that even though they sponsor me, the owner always tells me, "Said man, go eat other people's barbecue and stuff. So you can always get a taste of what they do and how they. Because his thing is Gates is all. I mean, barbecue is all about personality and what you and how you do it and what you put into it. So he ain't worried about it. I'm always come back home. So,
he's like, you go out there, but
yeah. So literally, what I do, even when I travel, I always try to find. Even let's say, obviously, Maryland or Baltimore, they're known for crab cakes, but I'll look for a barbecue place because I just want to see how people do.
Right.
Like in Tampa Bay, I found a nice barbecue place while I was down there. So you never know what you might find. In New York, there's a decent barbecue place. Nashville, I know Tennessee is known for Memphis barbecue, but Nashville's good barbecue. So every time I travel, I always try to find some barbecue to replace it.
I went to Nashville one time and had some white barbecue sauce. First time I ever seen it, and it was back in 2010. It was all right.
I'm like Hillary Clinton. I travel with my own barbecue.
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with that.
I ain't fool with people's sauce because the one thing I noticed, there's tomato-based sauce like it is in Kansas City, and then there's that vinegar stuff. I can't fool with that.
Can't mess with that. All right, so last one before we head to our last segment. All right, so here's my fun one. They're making a movie about your life. Who's playing you in the movie and why?
Well, Will Smith is too tall to play me. I would say could be. I don't know how tall Michael B. Jordan is. I'm trying to think someone.
Trying to make sure height wise.
yeah, that's the thing. Jonathan Majors probably just because he's not as tall as I thought he was.
He seems tall on screen, though. He seems tall on screen. That's all that really counts.
Yeah, the camera angle stuff like that.
Right.
That's a good question. That would have to be someone kind of light skinned. Can't be Denzel.
Can't be too dark.
Nah, can't be too dark. I don't know. I'd have to give a little thought to that. Because one, I wouldn't let nobody play my movie because some of the stuff I did back in the day. I don't know.
Don't worry, they'll make a PG version of it. They'll make sure that you in the.
I don't know about that, man. So, there's a few reasons why I don't go back to my college, man. I did some stuff when I was a freshman out there, but if people knew what I did in the cafeteria at 2:00 in the morning, boy, they'd be
like the legend. The legend has returned.
Yeah, bro. Trust me when I tell you, man. I was a savage. My freshman year in college. Oh, nah, let me stop because I don't know who's gonna be watching.
Yeah, I don't need you to get in trouble on my account.
Trust me, I ain't gonna get no trouble. I just
Right.
Halle Berry might come across this video. I don't want her thinking bad of me or whatever. I was a savage in college.
All right, that is it for the Darren Smith version of Quick Ones. Let's go ahead and finish this one up with Leave Your Legacy. I got used to it being short.
I ain't gonna say nothing.
There you go. So, all right. So before we get out of here, first of all, we want to thank you, Darren, for coming on and spending some time with us today here on One on One. Absolute pleasure to have you on. Definitely one of the people I look up to in the business. I always say that when I bring people on here, I bring people on that I really admire their work. And I really do. I see the grind and I love it. I absolutely love it. So once again, thank you for coming on for that. And with that being said, all right, we're going to say, when it's time to hang it up, and you sitting on the beach, Jack and Coke, chilling, maybe a mojito. I don't know your drink of choice, but
Water.
Okay, so when you sipping
I don't drink or
ice,
smoke. People might find it funny, but I don't drink or smoke.
no, it's all good. That's all good. Hey, look, it's better to not have put those toxins in your body if you can help it. So
yeah, I got some vices, but it ain't those.
You drink some water on the beach. What is your legacy? What the legacy that you want to leave behind in the sports journalism game, or just in life in general?
Well, one, like you kind of mentioned, I mean, I don't have a problem saying, you know, I'm a grinder. I like to think that I outwork people. I have to, because nothing is given. You know, unfortunately, um, you know, doors haven't been quote unquote open for me as it has been maybe for some. So
Right.
everything that I do, I've earned it. You know, when people try to question, oh, you do this, you report, you do this, like, you wish you could do what I was doing. I'm like, man, please, you know. And so, um, no, I don't say that to be malicious. I mean, I just said it because, you know, when people like to be keyboard warriors. I'm like, man, again, you know, y'all people don't even understand a lot of BS that I have to put up with. And it's not that many of us in the media as it is. And so what I always try to do is I try to help those who are interested in trying to come up and try to find a way. Look, I can't, a lot of stuff I can't do on the financial side for people, but I tell them, when people give me, you know, they ask me for advice. I'm not sure if you know Mark Gunnels, but, you know, it's one of my proteges at FS1, who's a graduate of Lincoln University as well. When he graduated from Lincoln, I think first time I met him, we were at a NBA preseason game, and, you know, he asked, could I help him? I said, well, I let him kind of co some of my shows with me, and I helped him with his podcast, gave him equipment and stuff. You know, I had so much stuff. I get microphone, headphone,
right,
mixing board, all that stuff to get it for him to get started. You get to LA, he said, boom. He said, if I can help you, just let me know. I'll do what I can. And so I always like to think that someone is willing to help somebody without looking for any financial gain from it. You know, I tell people all the time, people ask me all the time, you know, Mo, you know, my ex used to get upset at me because she was like, are you doing all these people shows? They're not paying you. I'm like, they don't have to. I'm like, God gave me a gift of gab, gift of speaking about sports, stuff like that. And the thing is, when I was starting out, I was the one that was out there asking
right.
people, hey, can you come on my show? What, you know, I can't afford it. No. And I remember Jamel Hill, first time I asked to do an interview with her, like, man, I don't know how to thank you. She said, just you asking was good enough. And so, you know, the fact that people think I've made it, I don't really see how. You know, I cover a team that's just been successful the last 5 years. So I've just been able to kind of go along with the ride. But I tell people, I said, man, if there's something I can do, if you just need me for a show or something, I said, if I can fit, if I can make the time for it, then I'll do it. I said, you know, so people have me on the shows all the time. Just, you know, I'm like, it's talking sports, man. I'm like, hell, be no different if I'm in a barbershop, like, and you know, I don't look for money or financial gain from it, because it's like, I mean, why? You know, because again, it's a talent, it's a gift,
right,
that God gave, and if I wasn't using it in the manner in which He wanted me to, He could take it away from me. Then you know, and so
you ain't got it no more. It's funny that you said something. I will say before, there was a young lady, and I asked her to do my show one time, and she's like $200. I was like, nah.
Yeah,
I was like, nah, I'm not doing that.
It's interesting, man. So I had this thing when I was in college, when I worked for my alma mater, when I was broadcasting games. I did, I think, 2 years of broadcasting the football games by myself. So I'm doing play by play and color,
right,
and you know, at the same time, and man, I'm talking. And
it's hard.
Thing is, I don't like the sound of my voice, and I'm talking. Of course, you know, you hear yourself, and then you kind of talk for like 3.5 hours, and when we're traveling, covering, playing another HBCU, I'm interviewing their chancellor or their president at halftime along with the band. So it's like I'm just talking, steady talking. Everybody say how good a job I'm doing. I'm like, y'all don't understand. It's freaking me out.
It's hard.
To where I look.
Hard.
I don't like their politics, but a Sean Hannity or Rush Limbaugh, I had to respect their greatness because they can talk for 3 hours. They can fill it. I can't do that. And so when I started my show, I ended up, I think I had my co-host, my guy Michael Coleman, who's used to be sports director in Kansas City, sports director down in Tyler, Texas, where Patrick is from. You know, he does it, and then he done it with me for the last 4 or 5 years or whatever. And then I had another guy that was interested. I used to work with him. at Empire Retirement. So he's a big Dallas Cowboys fan. He used to always talk about new media versus old media. I'm like, bro, trust me, you know, you can talk all that talk, but you can't expect. And then once I had to bring him, I brought him in, let him coach with me, and saw like this difference between your new media and this old media, because this old media was getting credentials for the NFL drafts and all this other stuff, and got him credentials. So he's like, okay, now saying now he's speaking a little differently now, saying. So, and I had another young lady who claimed that she was interested, but see, stuff was always coming up, and so I said, man, it's sacrifices that have to be made. I said, I'm not paying you. I said, I'm not paying you. I said, the thing is, I get you credentials for
I get you opportunities.
With and opportunity, but I'm not finna, but I'm not going to get you credentials so you can go out and be posting. I said, man, I don't need all that, So like. So as you see during the Super Bowl, like I had a Mark credential last class. Hey man, you got to work, bro. I ain't just getting you a credential to the stuff so you can just be out here. I said, no, you got to work. You got to put the work in. Now, granted, a lot of times I may not have work for them to do, but I'll come up with something. I said, man, you need to go run, and give me some guests. What I'm saying? Like for the NFL draft this year, Mark came back into town. He asked me, could I get him a credential? I was like, all right, bro, you're gonna work. That first night we did our show. He was on. I was like, do whatever you want to do the last 2 days. Because I knew I wasn't going to be broadcasting because I knew I had the roles or whatever. So I was like, come work, enjoy the draft the last couple of days. And that's what we did. So I'm just someone who's willing to try to help others because people help me. So, as a bridge builder, people were kind enough to put me, like my basketball coach. He made the phone call to, a former player who had said, hey, I want to intern under you, learn under you. So he gave me the opportunity. So it would not be right for me to be a Clarence Thomas, so to speak, to where I got someplace and then I didn't bring somebody over. No, I can't do that.
That's a good one. I feel you. I feel you though. I mean, I think that's the most important part is just helping people out. And trying to, have that growth. And then I've been doing this now for going on 7 years. And when I first started, I thought, oh, maybe I'm over in on my head, but I wouldn't take anything back. Every moment, every game. I tell people,
and I tell people, if you really want to do it, that's all you got to do. You got a phone, you got a webcam, just start your own podcast. I mean, I could be doing all stuff on YouTube, but man, I got enough I got to do. Man, I tell people, man,
it's hard. It's hard. It's hard to keep
I just had to realize I was like, damn. I said, man, I've been doing this for about 3 years. I said, man, I'm 45 years old. I'm like, jeez, and I keep telling myself, I ain't 25 no more because I remember I was like, man, I'm just call me young man. I said, yeah, I look it. Trust me, life, black don't crack. Look, God has been good to me. But man, I tell you, man, look, I roll out the bed sometimes. It reminds me, yeah, brother.
The little knees start popping, elbow. Look, I wake up every morning, my shoulder be like, I'm like, all right, okay, shoulder.
I'll be honest, though, saying the women don't complain, but
hey,
so I want to put that out there too. So let that be.
Darren is solid. He's good. He's good. I want to put that out there.
Hey, hold on. I sound like the old boy Fleece Johnson from MSNBC Lockup Raw. Let me put that out there too. Now I'm gangster.
I make sure y'all need to understand now. Come on, now.
Let that be known too. Yeah.
Oh man, look. We thank you once again, Darren, for coming on.
Pleasure.
Episode 97. We want to go ahead and give a shout out for our guest next week, my man Brian H. Water, professional podcaster, host of the Wrestling Realm, Breaking Through the Glass Ceilings, Ringers on Wednesdays worldwide, and then of course TWG Fan Club. He one of the best wrestling minds I've ever come across, and the guy's just like an encyclopedia when it comes to wrestling. I cannot wait to have my man Brian H. Waters on with me next week. Look,
I'm about to have him on sometime in the future too.
Hey man, I'm gonna tell you,
you know what? I need to have him on when it's WrestleMania or following Radio Row, following the Royal Rumble or something. I'm gonna have to try to.
Yeah, you got to catch up. I'm telling you, man, he's definitely one of the best. I'm so glad to be able to have him on.
I actually miss talking about wrestling. You have no idea. As much as I have the opportunity to watch wrestling, obviously Monday night stuff like that during the season, it's all football. It's hot. And then I ain't gonna lie, sports gambling got me hooked. I can't watch wrestling. I will make time to watch WrestleMania because it's thankfully
it's WrestleMania, right?
It's over 2 nights, but man, I mean, it's just hard for me. Like I couldn't tell you anything about the storyline. I don't know why the hell Roman Reigns is so popular. I think because I came in doing that Attitude Raw era and of course Hulkamania stuff
Right.
growing up. It's just, and then once it just sooner or later in life, I always thought that wrestling was something I was always going to watch, but it just seemed like
it drifted
football
from me.
and sports and everything else, the commitment and stuff. You can't watch everything.
Yeah, I used to watch it religiously every Friday or every Monday, Thursday, or Friday, whatever day it was in the week, especially with SmackDown flipping back and forth, and I was big on it. But now I'm
Monday
a big
Night Raw, Monday Nitro, Thursday night,
right
SmackDown and Thunder. You couldn't tell me.
And
nothing.
now I watch the highlights. I'll peek, now they have the highlights. So I'll go watch the highlights. I go on YouTube and watch the best segments of the show. And the only time,
to the sheets, man.
The only time that I watch is unless it's a pay-per-view. It's a pay-per-view. I'm going to sit down and watch it from the beginning. But that's how that goes. All right, everybody, that's it. Episode 97 here, a one-on-one on the Legacy Maker Sports Network. I'd like to thank the man, the myth, and the legend. The suit game is always tight with my man, Darren Smith. Darren, thank you, brother, for coming on, man. We truly, truly appreciate it.
Thank you. Anytime, man. Anytime. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. We'll see you all next week.
Legacy Maker, the All Sports Network. One. Welcome to the one-on-one. When it comes to ratings, man, we number one. I get the truth, then I give them the scoop. If anybody got a question, I give them the